Hello, I'm Seema Chishti, and today it's a pleasure to be speaking to Nagesh Kukunoor, director, writer, filmmaker, and one of our most gripping storytellers. He's a portrayer of life in India as it has chopped and changed at a dramatic pace, especially since the 1990s. Nagesh has most recently done The Hunt. It's a remarkable short series on the Rajiv Gandhi assassination, the killing of a former Prime Minister in 1991 on an election campaign that was done by a woman suicide bomber and that changed the course of India's political history. The serial is based on a book by Aniruddha Mitra, which came out in 2022. It's called 90 Days. I say remarkable for this series for many reasons, from the choice of subject to how the period has been recreated. I hope to ask Nagesh separately on all aspects that struck me as I watched riveted. Nagesh, welcome to The Wire. It's a very important fact of Indian political history, but it sits in 1991. Why do a short series on the Rajiv Gandhi assassination today in 2025?
For me, the excitement's always been the fact that, if someone gives me a project or if I come across something, a genre that I haven't uh, sort of dabbled in before, that's always the most exciting uh, part of choosing a project. I've been saying this forever, which is, before the dust settles, I hope to have made at least one film. Never knew about web series back then, but or a web series in a genre, in every single genre. That's my excitement. Um, so when Sameer Nair at Applause approached me with this, Aniruddha Mitra had pitched him this idea, and Sameer had approached me. My initial reaction was like, no, I don't want to do anything political or religious because those are areas I clearly don't want to dabble in. This goes all the way back to Hyderabad Blues. The only kind of politics that I'll write is my fictional show, City of Dreams, which I've already done 3 seasons of. That's fine, whatever my co-writer and I can cook up. But Samir said this is not political. Take a read. This reads like a true crime thriller. Um, Police procedural, if you will. So, and I did. And as I read it, I kind of knew how to structure this show. Uh, and for me, the excitement was the fact that starting with the assassination and what happens in the subsequent 90 days is nothing short of like a blockbuster thriller. The twists and turns as a scriptwriter that you'd want to chart out with anything that you do already happened. And as I read, I was constantly scratching my head saying, I really can't believe this happened. It was that ridiculous. So that was the starting point. It was not to try and position this, while it was such an important part of Indian history. For me, that was not the excitement to tell the story.
Okay.
It was the thriller
Yeah.
part.
So for me, what was really thrilling is that it's like a sensational plot and it's so gripping and there's so much pace, but it's kind of happening in a tight laboratory, really. It's the pre-cell phone India, where you don't have the gizmos, you don't have tricks, you don't have moving screens, you don't have swipes, and you don't have detectives, and you don't have like sharp suits. So tell me about trying to create a pre-cell phone nation, a pre-cell phone India in a police procedural where so much is happening now. What are the challenges to that? The clothes, the aesthetics, the architecture. To tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, the once the toughest part of the show was the writing, hands down. Because when you're dealing with anything true, then as a co-writer, and the other two writers with me face the same challenges. How do you present it in a way that's entertaining, it's dramatic, but at the same time you're not doing a disservice to the people who actually lived through this. uh, Even a simple scene that might not, uh, to the audience, might not have been anything but, like a minute on the screen, would take us forever because you constantly are questioning yourself, would the real person have said this? Is there anything derogatory in this? There's a lot of attention you have to pay to uh, uh, the not just the characters, the scene itself, but also deal with every small detail with the utmost sensitivity. So that was the biggest challenge. Now, when I put the director's hat on, um, where that light bulb goes off, where you want to do, when you start actually attacking the material about how you want to lens it, and what will art direction and production design entail, all those things. It was just the photographs that I saw from that period. And it still blows my mind today, Seema, is these people were tasked with the largest manhunt in history. And you can see, in Indian history, I mean, sorry, not world history, Indian history. And you can just see these five or six, or sometimes a larger group of really nondescript men, just wearing gray and white, and those muted colors, which was the way that a lot of these officers presented themselves back in the day, uh, standing against a very unimpressive wall. And these pictures were the trigger about how I wanted to do this show. Strip everything down, muted colors, nothing should pop. Uh, the way I was going to direct it, the actors came much later. But in terms of the visual palette, my direction to the cinematographer Sangram Giri was that it should never ever seem like the camera is doing something, or your lighting is doing anything. It should just seem like, if I've placed it in that pivotal conference room where everyone is talking most of the time, like, you know, John Le Carre had George Smiley do in his books, was practically do nothing, sit and talk. That was the kind of ambience I wanted to create.
I mean, it's a very process of deliberation that you have to be conscious of at all times. Also, you have so many characters in it who are living. So, it's Kartikeyan, it is Amod Kant. So, did you feel a bit uneasy about portrayals? Did that impact your research process? Because you always have crazy disclaimers going up these days, right? It has nothing to do with, etc. But in a super sensitive atmosphere like today in India, to be portraying people, police officers, retired, but living nonetheless, was that a challenge?
For sure it was. But I keep going back to the writing. As as a writer, the kind of time we took to get this right uh, gave me the confidence that at least we would project them correctly. I'd like to think we did. Um, but every time you deal with someone real, someone who's still around today, someone like Karthikeyan, who's done so many amazing things in his life, um, you just hope that you did right by him. I don't think we got every single scene right, every single line right, but for the most part, we followed Aniruddha Mitra's book as our guiding light. Uh, because there's so much material also that the other people have written about the assassination, which kind of have a slightly differing viewpoint and everything. So we had to pick one, and we chose Aniruddha's book, and we went with it.
Okay. I was just watching your City of Dreams, which is your other kind of serial, political. It's a huge contrast in the language, in the color, literally and metaphorically, that it brings to the screen. Another fact of that serial is the presence of media. Like practically every 4 or 5 minutes, something connected to the media comes up as a greatly disruptionary, not always positive kind of a force. In this, there's a very different way in which media exists or does not exist through this. So, any comments on what kind of portraying this presence of the media as constant interruptions, or they're pushing your story along, the plot along? That's not the case in this.
Right. And, as you're aware, someone who's been in that space for so long, the media occupied a very, very different position in our lives, uh, growing up, and especially in late 80s, early 90s India, um, uh, it was not as invasive. It was not there 24/7. The lines between who is reporting has also blurred because every citizen's become a reporter now. So earlier, you kind of waited at the end of the day, and like my dad, you waited for the morning when the print media did its proper reporting. And so many great films have been made about what the media should do, shouldn't do, who sells out, who doesn't. Network is a great classic, which
Yeah.
is often quoted and still stands the test of time. Um, and then the whole country tuned in to the Doordarshan news at the end of the day. And this was where you got your breaking news, or you got the most recent stuff. So there, the media, I didn't have to use the director cuts that we do all the time, because we know how the media drives every story, every narrative forward in today's times. You can, even as writers, it's not a creative tool that we're using. You cannot not use it, is what I'm saying, when you write things like City of Dreams. But when I was writing this with Rohit and Sriram, the joy of not having to do media cuts was so liberating, that we could just focus on the storytelling, and occasionally, for good effect, drop in, you know, like if you've seen this show,
I have, yes.
the reportage on Rajiv Gandhi, which occupies such a chilling space because it's so infrequent, as opposed to breaking news and this and that. So it was wonderful. And it's very interesting that you asked this question, because for me as a writer, literally, it wasn't until City of Dreams that I could, as a reflex, write a character picking up a cell phone and saying something or calling someone. Because even if you see right up until that point, Dhanak being my last film, 2015, m- characters in my films never picked up the phone. I just never, as a scriptwriter, saw that. Uh, I always prefer to have the character, go and meet the other person. And I enjoy the drama that plays out, even if two people are sitting across from each other. And uh, once City of Dreams came along, you constantly asked yourself, hey, why is the person not picking up the phone and having this conversation? Why is he or she going to someone's place? And with The Hunt, it was back to being in that liberated space. Oh, there's no way they can have this conversation because they have to go back there. So yeah,
Great.
very exciting.
Yeah. So the one more thing struck me. You mentioned the footage about Rajiv Gandhi that you have in this. You've chosen not to cast an actor as Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi or Priyanka or the others. Rajiv Gandhi, of course, has to have somebody playing him because those shots were necessary. Why did you kind of choose to do that? I mean, you could have well had somebody playing the family.
Because I wanted to keep the entire show, and I'd like to think that over 7 episodes we presented a gripping show. Um, to just the police procedural. See, the offshoots of an event so dramatic, so horrific, they're endless. You start delving into that, and it doesn't stop. You put the camera there, and then you want to ask why you're not going back there often enough, like to the Gandhi family or whatever. So when the event happens, all I did is, you see the secretary come, and you just see someone standing off in the distance who you presume is Sonia Gandhi, and that's all.
Yeah.
Uh, did not want to put the camera there for the simple reason that this was not the show about that.
Yeah.
So why go there?
Yeah, no, that certainly helped kind of keep the focus on this very tight and awesome police procedural that you like put out. A lot of shows are now shot, and films are shot in different languages. There are reshot with separate languages. Here you've done something different, is a sense I get, that there are a lot of languages happening simultaneously. And I heard you speak on another interview about the character playing Sivarasan, the LTT operative, is actually a Malayali. He's a Keralite, a Malayali speaker, but who's speaking a Sri Lankan Tamil. And you, as a director, are having to direct different characters in different languages. So, what does that like do to the direction of a show, and what does that say about India's diversity?
Um, it's the equivalent of really taking a loaded gun, putting it against your forehead every day when you come onto the set. Because Ranjit Jha, who's my associate director, and a confidant over the last decade, I'd always turn to him and say, next time I have this kind of hubris to think that I can direct in other languages, just slap me and say, stick to Hindi or English because that's what you know best. It was arguably the most challenging thing I've done in my life. Um, I have never viewed films as a visual medium. I've always viewed films as an audiovisual medium, and that changes everything because the spoken word for me is so important. Um, it also helps me direct actors with a good amount of specificity because they're not just saying anything that they feel like. I don't like actors to change the words that the writers have written
You're that kind
unless,
of a director?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if someone spent, in this case, that someone is me also, 8 months,
Yeah.
sometimes a year, finding the right word, I don't think you can just have the sort of disrespect to just come and just change lines. I remember this very, very famous thing that I had read way before I got into films when Laurence Olivier was doing The Marathon Man, which was written by William Goldman. Uh, he, on set, William Goldman was there as a consultant. And he, while rehearsing the scene, he stopped and asked him if he could, I think, add please or something like this, as uh,
Just a polite
the
one.
story goes. Yeah. So you never ever assume that these words were just written because they were just written, and someone just kind of scribbled them before we came on set. So I like actors to give it that respect. So I pay a lot of attention to the written word, and I know I man, that was a massive digression. I knew I had a point coming back to it. What was the specific question,
The
Seema? I'm
point
sorry.
was just about the many languages and directing in those, and the
Yes.
challenge that it poses, and also look what it says about the diversity of India. They could have a guy from Kerala playing and speaking in Sri Lankan Tamil with a Hyderabad-born director who's directing him.
Yeah. So that was actually the challenge that the investigators faced also, the diversity of India, because the SIT was selected primarily with people who had good skills to deal with the ground reality in Tamil Nadu. So when these investigators went down, people like Amit Verma had an edge over the others, primarily because he was from the Tamil Nadu IPS cadre, and he could actually understand and speak Tamil. So these were the challenges that were faced by the people on the ground when they were doing it, and this was the challenge that I faced as a director because I'm dealing with Tamil, which, by the way, I spent about 7 years when I was a kid, way too young to remember anything. But then I went back to a boarding school in Yerkad, Montfort. So at one point, I could speak Tamil reasonably well. Now I understand it better than I can speak it. So I came with the confidence that, okay, it's Tamil, so I think I can manage. But the problem here was that it was Sri Lankan Tamil, and they use different words. Well, if you're a fluent Tamil speaker, then you can make the switch easily, which I'm not. So I was grappling with that. And then there were so many actors who were not Tamilians. So we had Malayalis, or we had an Amit Sial, who's clearly not a Tamilian. So yeah, so this was, oh man, it was exhausting. And I remember the very first day, um, I'm shooting a scene between Prabhakaran and Sivaras. Prabhakaran played by a Malayali actor, Jyotish. Sivarasan played by Shafiq Mustafa, another Malayali actor. And like you said, being directed by Nagesh, who's a Hyderabadi Telugu. So my primary language of instruction to the actors on set, I start with English. Whoever is comfortable in English, grasp that. Otherwise, I immediately switch to Hindi. Boom, boom, boom. Give everyone the directions. We start rehearsing. So we start the scene. And now, while they are saying the lines to each other in Sri Lankan Tamil, I'm constantly turning to my AD, Raja from Chennai, and I'm saying, "Did we get that line? Was there? I think that was what the intent was." While I'm holding an English script in my hand, trying to see those. So, okay, we do one take. Then I run up to the actors. I'm like, "Okay," and here's the fun part. So Shafiq only understands Hindi. So I have to break the
Oh,
whole scene down to, yeah. So I have to break the whole scene down to him in Hindi. This is what happened. Da, 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 da. Okay, we're done. Jyotish only understands English. So now I have to re-break the scene down to Jyotish fully in English. Okay, this is what you're doing. Da, 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 da. Okay, now we're done. And because the actors need cues to figure out what lines to come in next, they start talking to each other in Malayalam. And but while they're telling each other that, oh, when I say this in that Sri Lankan Tamil, then you will say this. And I don't understand what they're saying. So I don't know if they're giving each other the right cues or not. And I'm like, no, 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 time out, time out. You need to run it by me what you're. So, and this was the first scene that I shot with the LTT.
so you've also got into the LTT's head. You kind of do a fairly objective, if I may use that word, framing of the LTT's concerns, what drove them to take this, to this heinous crime of woman suicide bomber, never before in the history of India. But you do spend some time, like as a viewer, I felt that I had spent some time in the LTT head. So, how difficult was that decision?
It was as difficult or not as difficult as dealing with the SIT. Whenever I'm, and this goes back to me as a scriptwriter, kind of the way I view the world is everything gray. There's virtually no black and white. Uh, People do things for a reason. And as a scriptwriter, invariably I need to find the reason to infuse my characters with some degree of humanity. Uh, Very few times in my career I've written like absolute villains. Most of the times it's people who are, like I said, find the reason for doing what they do. So even when I was writing the LTT, approach them with the same lens that what they were doing was a cause that they absolutely believed in. Now, as a scriptwriter, as a director, I want to be an observer to the process. And that's what I want the audience eventually to do. I want them to observe the process. Let's say you were in the room and these two guys were talking to each other. Now, whatever opinions you form there as the viewer, they are your own. That's fine. But and you can accuse me of not picking a side, but that's what I enjoy as a writer and director.
Okay, a few things now, like slightly just zooming out of the hunt. You've done stuff on OTT now after a very successful stint as a director of cinema, of movies for the screen, audience, and all that. And you've made a spectrum, I mean, you've made a really broad set of kinds of films that you've made. What is the OTT directing experience like? Is it different? Is it better? Is it getting worse? Is it getting even cooler?
I was someone who'd been wanting to get into the long format of storytelling for a very, very, very long time. As a matter of fact, on some of my previous trips to the US, I was still doing the rounds of some agents. and trying to pitch myself as um, an episodic director, meaning that I would love to do because I've been a huge fan of HBO forever. And in my opinion, they truly, on the American side, invented the series format, the one which I truly love, which Netflix again took it into the stratosphere. So when streaming came to India, I was ready. I was like, oh, finally. So Applause Entertainment, with whom I've done so much work, the first show that Samir Nair greenlit was City of Dreams, the very first show that he greenlit. So I was there, and even before that, I had dabbled with the test case, the one with Nimrat Kaur on Old Balaji. I did only the pilot there, but I'm saying I was already in it. So when we first got into this space, it was the Wild West. Everyone, I mean, like a dozen players, everyone wanting to build their libraries. So, the work was plenty. Bombay was at that point, you couldn't get cameras, you couldn't get equipment, you couldn't get people to come and, work on your set. Because at one point, I kid you not, close to like 100 shows were being shot in Mumbai at the same time. So it was that crazy, and it was truly enjoyable. We were doing whatever the heck we wanted. Like in any business, we knew the honeymoon period wouldn't last.
Yeah.
The consolidation started, and the streaming service is an extremely tough place for you to make any money. Only Netflix keeps bucking that rule.
Trend.
They are the
Yeah.
only ones. Yeah, the trend. They constantly have very loyal viewership, and all those things. So I knew that eventually that would shrink, and along with that, uh, once you bring it down to just a few shows, then it's going to bring the uh, sort of drive the content into a narrow space. Bound to happen. When you're doing 20-25 shows, you can say that, oh, one's a political thriller, one's this, one's that. And then once you start narrowing it and you say, oh, we are going to do only 8 or 10 shows and then instantly you're like, let's try and find something mainstream. Let's try and find, which actor will act here and stuff like that. So that period, those 7 sort of years, we've seen that gradual shift towards, okay, let's be in this space, let's only do this. So
Get the stars, let's be mainstream, just do that
which
sort of
is
stuff.
kind of what I've faced, um, my entire professional life. It's been the kind of the same story uh, with films, for sure.
Yeah.
That you know, so it's nothing new for me, and I
Yeah.
had a good 3-4 year run. But with Applause, it's still been wonderful. I mean, right up until The Hunt, we've still been doing whatever the heck.
Yeah. There's one more trend, Nagesh, in kind of a global trend as well, and in India particularly, which is of reels or short videos. And it seems there's a survey that I was looking up, it was on Statista or something, that by the end of 2025, 82% of all content on the world internet would be visual, and a majority of that would be driven by short video. And India is particularly leading the parade in this. What does that do to the palate of a film goer? The fact that there is this, there's a short video. Does that coarsen the palate? Or does it make it easier to make cinema because they are more marinated to appreciate the visual form now than they were earlier?
No, I personally, I think it worsens it, um, because uh, and enough mm, psychiatrists have weighed in on this whole phenomenon of just the swipe, the relentless swipe, right? So you rewire your brain a certain way. I, as a viewer, have to tell myself periodically, okay, that over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be, let's say, Oscar nominated films. Otherwise, at the end of a long day, exhausted, 10, 12 hours, cerebral work, a little workout thrown in, this, that. I come and flop in front of the reflex is to go to things that don't require any active thought. A Tempa's rom-com, an action film. Yeah, this is me as a content creator. Can you imagine the poor bloke on the street?
Yeah.
So people are so wired to this, and like you said, India will lead the charge on this with the 1.5 minute for. I've already been approached to do something like that, and I know I can't, and I do. I hope I don't have to eat my words. That पता चला कुछ काम है ही नहीं. 5 साल
करना पड़ा
we
है.
are all running around with, and then you're like, okay, I'll do 120 short episodes. You know, so that's already happening. It's like I said, the offers are out there. Um, but I'd like to believe, and this is what's kept me alive all these years. And if I'm still kicking around, reinventing myself, making content 27 years later, and still doing the kinds of things that I want to do, not governed by what I should be doing, I'd like to believe that there is a space for all of us. And I've quoted this many times before um, when the Coen brothers won the best film for Fargo. Uh, Joel Coen said, at his Oscar speech, said, "Thank you for letting us play in our corner of the sandbox." And it is, oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah. You can't
that's
improve on that. Yeah, you can't.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
quote. I mean, and I've said it so many times that I have this chota corner, and I'd like to believe that I can still make my content. So if we are going to bring it down to just, let's say, the four big players in the space doing a max of 10 shows per year, I'd like to think that I could make one of those shows. If and I plan to get back into films this year. If there's only scope for 10 medium budget films, because everything now will be geared towards only the big budget film, because the only way to break that reels mindset of people is to push them into a theater for a blockbuster. Um, so every film that'll hit the theater, 80% of them are going to be these big films, but that 10 to 20% might be those medium level films. I'd like to think that one of them could be mine. So that's the kind of focus I have, and not worry about just, oh, where is this headed, because had I done that, I would have packed up, maybe after a Rockford or something like that.
Yeah.
Because constantly, even back in the day when Elahe and I used to go to these pitch meetings, it was the same thing. The first question is, who's isme star kaun hai? Even before you pitch the content. So in that respect, if you think about the bigger picture, gets you nowhere. I think about exactly what
What you can
you.
do and focus on
Bus,
that.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Nagesh, quick thoughts on what is happening to the Hindi film industry. Is its kind of collapse, if I can use that word, just because of economics of theater and the country that they've just priced themselves out, or the stars are just making movies so expensive? What's happening, or is there something beyond that? Is this also a creative crisis?
No, I don't think there's a creative crisis, because the web, the streaming space unleashed are is just hundreds of new directors and writers and cinematographers. So creatively, no. As a matter of fact, when streaming started, it was arguably the most vibrant period to generate 100 new directors every year, or 500 writers. So no, creatively we have oodles of talent right now. Um, I have been saying this right from the get go forever. Um, in a capitalistic setup, when people accuse stars of taking insane numbers and ramping up the budgets, I'm like, if you pay them, they'll take it. It's as simple as that. It's not that, I mean, as a director, okay, let's say I ask for X amount, a lakh, and I get it. Now, why the heck am I going to say, no, I'll actually do this for 25,000? I don't need a lakh. The finger pointing is completely incorrect. It's the system that, and it's a free market, right or wrong. We're not judging that.
Yeah.
So the pricing has always been the problem. I mean, the real estate, we constantly talk about Mumbai, primarily because uh, when films release, it's used as a good testing ground for any kind of theory. Uh, the the prices are insane, and we're saying this in 2025. We were saying this in 2015. We were saying this in, when the multiplexes first came to town. I was briefly excited for 3 days, I think. I was like, yay, smaller screens. I remember my whole excitement. I was like, oh, so I don't have the pressure to fill a 1500 seater or a 1200 seat. I can only do it with a 200 seater. And it evaporated in 5 seconds because the prices were so high that it's the buyer's mentality of getting a good bargain. If I'm paying 500 bucks, it might be better to just go see Shahrukh. Why would I want to see
Yeah.
this little film about two kids traversing Rajasthan? The market kind of dictates things. So uh, the pricing is borderline insane, right? I mean, the big films, when people charge tickets upward of 1,000 rupees, people still pay them,
Yeah.
and so that's where we're headed. So
You think
this
it's
this
fundamentally an economic crisis which is plaguing Bombay today.
it is it is that's the only thing in the industry, because please look at the content that's landed on streaming platforms for the last uh, 7 years since we've been around.
Yeah.
You would have to agree that it's been, stories wise, treatment wise, some of the
Yeah.
most diverse things that we've ever seen come out of the entertainment industry
Yeah.
in the last 50 years, I'd say.
Yeah. It's
Just
pretty
the
much
kind of
the golden
stories that,
age. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, but creatively, there are people. There's stuff to be done. People are excited, but as long as you don't get the numbers into the theaters, and the prices are through the roof, you're not going to be able to change that.
Yeah.
Can't blame anyone.
Yeah. And finally, what is with censorship of cinema in India today? I think one can just have a hall dedicated to all the forbidden films, that Punjab 95, films not being released in India but being forced to be released abroad, asking for 96 cuts, and, they're being forced to cut two, not being able to use names. What's happening with the censorship circuit?
So, honestly, it's something that I've dealt with from back in Hyderabad Blues. When Hyderabad Blues first went up before the censor board, they asked for 91 cuts. So, for me, it's something that I've just learned to live with. Again, not think about the larger picture. Just think about what I do and make. And I have this survivor's mentality. Seema, I just enjoy doing what I do so much. Just enjoy doing it so much that I will always find the way to kind of
Yeah, to
circumnavigate
beat the
it.
odds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just do my thing and not have a broader worldview. And honestly, I'm saying, because otherwise it gets overwhelming. I mean, and it curbs, it completely stifles what I would do. Instead
Yeah.
of that, I'm like, okay, the next thing I'm doing is this. All right, this is what we have. Let's try and figure out how we can do this, not compromise the storytelling. And please, when people say, oh, I'm an uncompromising filmmaker, it's BS. I mean, since the dawn of time, all of art is just a bloody compromise. So
Yeah.
other than, let's say you've thrown paint on a wall and you're like, oh, this is my artistic vision. Even that is a compromise, right? So who knows what the every day that I'm on set, there's a compromise being made creatively. It's money, it's time. The actor hasn't showed up, so
Okay, Nagesh, thank you so much. We must let you go, but before that, give me 5 films that you think anybody who's not obsessed with film but should have on their bucket list, and the 5 absolute stunning films that you think I should see before I die.
so
Your favorites.
again, yeah. So the worlds are so different, and I'm loosely calling it. No, I won't even call it that. I'll say Indian cinema versus American. No, not that. That would be unfair. Versus English cinema, the stuff that I'm influenced by. I'm primarily influenced by a lot of American cinema, so that's where I come from. So on the Indian side, I had this list prepared because every time I'd ask myself, what would those films be? So let me see. I'm going to reel them off in no particular order. Um, Namak Haram,
Okay.
um, K. Vishwanath's Sagara Sangamam, Sholay, in spite of all the influences that came from uh, Sergio Leone. Um, um, I had one more in there. How the hell am I forgetting? I had one more Rishida film in there, which was Bawarchi. Uh,
Okay.
but maybe two Rishida films are too much for people. And I have my own justification for why I think these films are great. But growing up as a middle class Telugu boy, the idea of a imperfectly perfect family in Bawarchi kind of made sense to me. It was so utopian, the final outcome. So I think it's something like I'd like to believe that we can achieve. But anyways, Bawarchi is in there, and that still leaves one more. Uh, Darn! I thought I had this. Where the hell is my list? I had one more. Namakaram, Bawarchi, Sagarasangam, Sholay, and something else. I'll circle back to it. There's one. There's
You
one
can name
more.
even one of your own. Don't be modest. You can name one of your own. You
Oh
don't need to
my!
be that modest. Yeah.
Oh my God! I can't bear to watch my films. So I have a rule, and the only person who can attest to it is Elahe, because she's been with me the entire
This is
journey.
Elahe Heptullah for our viewers who may not know her. She's your producer
Yeah,
and your creative partner. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, other than Bollywood Calling, which I saw 10 years after I'd made it,
Gosh.
okay,
Yeah.
there's not a single film or web series or whatever that I've ever watched after I made it.
That's, yeah. We need to have a separate conversation about this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something for the psychiatrist's couch. It's like it really requires a deeper. So the simple line is I just can't bear to watch my own uh, the mistakes I've made. I can only see the mistakes. And a lot of directors face this, but
Yeah.
usually with the passage of time, you kind of forgive yourself. uh, I've never sat down and said, okay, uh, just laugh at, let's pick Hyderabad Blues and say, oh my God, oh, that's so horrible. I can laugh about it, but I just can't bring myself to do that. So my films are never, ever going to be
Gosh.
this.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's, yeah.
God.
I thought I was making it easy for you. But okay, we've
No, no,
ruled out all your films. Any one last film in your list?
the Hindi film I can, but I'll go to
Word
the
film.
English
Yeah.
side. Yeah, that's fairly easy because there are too many. But I'll start. Um, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
The first time I ever wanted to be a filmmaker, uh, which I told uh, Spielberg when I met him.
Oh,
So that was one of the highlights.
yeah.
So Terminator 2, the film which finally, I was a chemical engineer living in Dallas, living my dream. I'd gotten my job again the year 1991. Um, and I was like, yeah, this is the American dream. And I watched Terminator 2 and I said, I want to do something else with that. I mean, it was that dramatic. So,
Mind
anyways,
blowing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Um, I mean, what a film. Magnolia, Paul Thomas Anderson's film. If people haven't seen it, please go watch it. That's how you write and direct drama. Uh, uh, and it's crazy, but uh, I had other things like Citizen Kane. Um, Recently, I've added Billy Wilder's The Apartment to it. Uh, uh, as someone I think who's older and truly getting a better handle on relationships. I mean, I'm only 58, so we still have a little ways to go. Um,
Plenty of time.
yeah, plenty of time. And I added George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road to that list
Okay.
of high art. I've watched that film about, I don't know, 15, 20 times. And I just can't, yeah. I mean, and this is, sometimes as a director, you can watch stuff that you know that in a million years you can never do. There's stuff you watch, like, a Citizen Kane or whatever, and you can say, okay, maybe if I applied myself, maybe if I mean, it's brilliant that Wells does it when he's 24, and we're not even going there. But you can say that, oh, or like a Magnolia, I'm like, if I really busted my ass, I could do something like that. But then there's stuff that you see like Fury Road, and you go, oh, I can't do that in a million years, even if I try,
Yeah.
because every aspect of filmmaking is out of my wheelhouse. Everything. So yeah. So, anyways, I've just reeled off.
Great. No, that's a very eclectic list, and yeah, I'm sure it'll look good on any bucket list. So thank you so much, Nagesh, and we look forward to your next venture, and I'm sure it'll be hopefully better than all these 5+5 films you've put out, and maybe it's on the big screen. And thank you so much for spending so much time with us, and thank you for making a cracking series, The Hunt. Thank you so much for watching. Nagesh, yeah, thank you so much, and goodbye.